Greetings, welcome, sharps, squares, newbies, and of course, Harley. Good morning, Harley.
How you doing, Jorey?
This is the Parleh Sports Betting Show with me, Jorey Middlestadt, and the other bald guy, Harley Redlick, each and every week on Canada's Sports Betting Network, The Parleh. It's the 9th edition of the program. We're coming to you on a Tuesday morning, which is rare because the previous 8 have all been on a Friday morning. Why are we doing this on a Tuesday? It's March, people. And that means the madness begins actually tonight. If you want to get technical, I know you're not. Yeah, I know. You're already shaking your head, Harley. You're not a big fan of the play-in games.
Tournament. This is just noise.
But let me remind you of something before I know getting a little offline here, but one of last year's Final Four participants played in one of the two play-in games. So don't dismiss it so quickly. All right, Harley? Excuse me. Just keep that in mind. And so we're going to be with you today for approximately 2 hours, about double the normal length of the podcast, because we got to break down the NCAA men's basketball tournament every which way. And before we jump into that, let's just tell you what's going to happen on the program today. It will be basically 2 hours of tourney talk, a little bit of other stuff at the beginning, which I'll get to in just a moment. What are we going to fill that time with? Well, we're going to fill out our brackets. We've actually done so, both Harley and I, but we're going to go through our brackets. Mine was literally like throwing darts. I will explain. We'll also get into game picks for the first couple days, who's going to win it all, i.e. futures, and everything else you need to know about this year's tournament. But before we get fully immersed in March Madness, we will talk about a gambling story or stories of the week, which we'll get to as well in just a sec. But first, I have to pump Harley's tires for a change. And I'd like to say I'm getting tired of doing it, Harley, but that would be a misnomer because you've just been on fire on this show, giving out winners each and every week. If I'm not mistaken, through the first 8 shows, Harley, I think you've had one losing week. That right? One
losing week, and last week more than made up for it. I crushed it.
Well, the last 2, I mean, right? 2 weeks ago, you had a clean slate with 3 huge dogs on the money line, on your Super NBA halftime. And this past week, you delved into both basketball and hockey. And just to quickly recap, you went back to the NBA Super halftime. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I almost forgot. When we get to picks and futures and everything, we're going to be joined by the Parleh's resident college basketball expert, Jelani Goodridge-Reid, and that'll happen in the last half hour of the program. Sorry, I didn't want to shortchange Jelani there, and I'm so excited to talk hoops, that I skipped over that. But we'll be looking forward to talking to Jelani. Anyway, so you went back to the NBA Super halftime system again last week. You had 3 plays, and just for people who maybe hadn't tuned in or aren't familiar, you're looking at significant underdogs in an NBA game, usually on the road, and you're going to play the dog as a money line halftime play, taking back big juice. And so last week, which is now about 10 days ago, you had the Orlando Magic in the first half over the Raptors, a game the Magic actually won at plus 170. That gets a check mark. The Cleveland Cavaliers first half over the Philadelphia 76ers as a plus 190 moneyline dog, check mark there. And then you had the Knicks at Phoenix as a plus 180 first half dog. That was the only one of the 3 that lost. Then you had your hockey, a couple hockey plays, and that was the Detroit Red Wings and the Tampa Bay Lightning under 5.5 goals, minus 110, a traditional point spread bet. That one. And then you took a money line dog, the Buffalo Sabres, who've been pretty hot of late. Boy, could you be cashing tickets on the Sabres as big dogs lately, right? Having done it twice to the Leafs as big money line dogs. They were a plus 170 dog to take down the Minnesota Wild. Another winner. I mean, give yourself a pat on the back, because that is some very, very strong plays on your part. And we encourage everybody to listen in and hey, if you've been playing with Harley, you'd be up a boatload of cash right now. You got anything for today on a Tuesday morning that you want to throw into the mix?
If you stick around till the end of the show, when we get Jelani on, I'll talk about some value bets I have for the NCAA, some good correlated parlays, some good money line bets, some futures with some potential huge payouts.
I should also point out that my purely for fun long shot golf picks, I didn't cash any. And the only shame of not doing a show this past Friday was we didn't get to talk about the Players' Championship. I'm not going to tell you that I was going to give you a long shot winner, but a big golf event that we did miss out on, and some tennis, because I'm partial to tennis, and I've been pretty good actually with some tennis picks since we started the show. But we'll get to those next week. And just a reminder, we won't be with you this Friday, right? We're doubling up this Tuesday in the middle to talk about March Madness. And before we get to that fun, just a couple quick gambling stories of the week, which we'd like to cover. This one's now got to be over a week old, I would guess. And it was a big story in the NFL, which has now been pushed way, way back with free agency opening, some big signings, a couple big trades in the National Football League. But it was a pretty big story for about 24 hours, and that was Atlanta Falcon wide receiver Calvin Ridley being suspended for the upcoming 2022 season for actually betting on NFL games. And the story continues to evolve, Harley, in that it's starting to come out that he originally said he only bet $1,500 on a few parlays. Well, apparently that's not entirely true. And I'm sure many of you have heard the story. The only thing I will add as background is at the time he bet on the games, he was actually not with the team. He was not active. He had stepped away from the team for mental health reasons. This is back in mid to late November. And he actually bet on his own team in some of the parlays that he played to win.
They're 5-team parlays. Roger Goodell is freaking out because the future of the NFL is related to gambling. So never forget, Goodell gave Ray Rice 2 games for literally knocking out his wife on camera. And Ridley got a year because he bet the Falcons in a parlay. Are you fucking kidding me? Goodell is just posturing because the NFL's meal ticket going forward is gambling and integrity is a threat. And he wants to send a message to the league that it won't be tolerated. You're telling me owners don't bet on the Super Bowl? You're telling me players don't bet on the Super Bowl? Or is that somehow going to be allowed? Because there's no way all these guys don't participate in gambling on Super Bowls and stuff like that. Goodell had low-hanging fruit. I want to see what he does when he finds out Mahomes' brother, that punk brat, bets and gets information from Mahomes and bets. And what's Goodell going to do with his darling Mahomes? Goodell's a bully. He picked on a relatively weak no-name. He didn't take on Rodgers with COVID. He wouldn't have the guts to take on Mahomes if his brother did anything. He's a wimp, Goodell, and a suck.
Yeah, except to play devil's advocate here, Harley, the rules are extremely clear in this regard. Every player will tell you the first day they show up for training camp and they have their orientation, right? And they get spoken to by some experts about trouble to avoid and things of that nature. It's crystal clear. You cannot bet on your own sport. You cannot do it. And there are severe penalties if you choose to do so. So while on one sense, we can sit here and compare things like the Ray Rice situation, and we can, look at the Deshaun Watson situation that's going to unfold right now. We can nitpick all we want with all of that, but the rules are clear cut. And with the proliferation of gambling, it being legal now in about 30 states in the US and obviously legal here now in Canada, I don't think he had much choice. Now, I agree that maybe the 1 year suspension may have been a little bit excessive, but what other choice did he have than to impose discipline here? Because the integrity of the game, I'm not talking about, the shield and all that mythology bullshit, but I'm talking about bettors, the public, who are now going to be more engaged than ever in betting on this sport. They have to come across as, hey, there's no cheating here. right? It has to be all above board. So in one sense, I can't fault him for coming down hard, especially with them being more and more in bed with gambling entities.
Ridley made one mistake, and that was gambling with a legal bookie.
Yeah,
because it's recorded. All he had to do was bet with the mob or the local thug or a motorcycle gang, and everything's quiet and everything's cool. Goodell sent a crystal clear message. I'm sure most of the owners and lots of the players in the NFL have illegal it's in the US, it's flat out illegal black market bookies. Goodell sent a crystal clear message to the league, and bookies obviously love their being discreet. They book the NFL bets. Congratulations, Roger Goodell, because you just told all the players just deal with black market bookies.
He might be pushing them in that direction, and that's an angle that maybe a lot of people haven't considered. So good job pointing that out. And what's interesting about the Ridley story is there's companies like Sport Radar, which I know you want to talk about, that are monitoring all the action that's going on. And this got red flagged, and to Ridley's credit, at least he owned up to it and didn't try to, say that it wasn't him or, somebody hacked his phone or some other bullshit story. But eyes are everywhere now, right?
Yeah, they are. And this is largely a paperwork exercise. The Sport Radar topic you're talking about, for those that don't know, Sport Radar is the largest company in the world. It monitors match fixing and game integrity. And they announced that 2021 set a record for the most suspicious games of possible match fixing. Don't worry about it, fans in North America of major sports. Soccer had the highest frequency of suspicious matches, followed by esports. The lower level competitions in soccer are significantly affected, like third-tier games. So the big takeaways from this: well-paid athletes in tier one major sports are too well paid and monitored for corruption. Even the refs are pretty well monitored now. Careful maybe if you bet 2 or 3 tier North American sports like the North American Soccer League or the AHL. But I got to tell you, shame on a book if they're taking a big bets on these C sports. Pinnacle Sports, it's a book shop online. They'll take $20,000 no problem on an NBA game. They got a $500 max on the AHL. I know this because OLG used to offer AHL during the NHL strike, and they made a stupid mistake like they usually make when they first introduce a game. I exploited it. I had ridiculous money going on a side. I looked at a cover, $500. I moved the line 30 cents. That's good bookmaking by Pinnacle Sports. Is Paris Smith, super sharp CEO in a business dominated by men. She's a female leader. But for the most part in North America, there's not too much to worry about with this stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And companies like that are more invaluable than ever because this is the kind of stuff that you want to know about. And you're right. Any smart book is going to have pretty low limits on these, second, third tier sports. It doesn't make sense because they are the ones that are far more ripe for misconduct, shall we say. The major sports, right? I mean, for the most part, and there are players that don't make huge money. In fact, a lot of them, but I don't think we have to worry a whole lot about it. In the major professional sports, college, there may be the odd chance that something like this happens. And there have been match fixing scandals in college basketball, a couple biggies, but we're talking back to the 80s would be the last one.
That was a long time ago. And if you look at
the Boston College,
if you look at the Arizona State scandal that got very famous and a lot of publicity, shame on the sports books in Vegas. They were taking $10,000 bets at a time on a B-rated game, bet after bet after bet. I mean, are you kidding me? Like the sports books were asleep back then to allow this to happen.
No question about it. Now, we don't want to get too far off topic because it is a March Madness special. And so now let's turn our attention there. And I think we should just start by taking like a 360 degree view of the tournament, just look at it from a general standpoint. But in terms of one specific Canadian content, there are more Canadians playing NCAA basketball than ever. And certainly in more prominent programs. Although I think the number actually this year was down 1 or 2 from the year before, but that's also as a result of the pandemic, right? Because they couldn't scout Canadian kids as much as they could in the past. But I mean, the numbers are big. There's so many of them, and there's some prominent players. And I know you wanted to just kind of touch upon a few of them.
Well, the conversation has to start with the second favorite to win it, the Arizona Wildcats. They're 6-1 to win it. They're led by Canadian shooting guard Bennedict Mathurin. He's projected to go in the top 10. Born and raised in Montreal, scouting reports say, quote, he can make shots and plays like a real NBA athlete. Third-team All-American, won bronze for Canada in the under-19. He's the leading scorer in Arizona. They way outperformed expectations this year.
Yeah.
They're second, not just in the rankings, but also Ken Pom. It's important for listeners to understand who Ken Pom is. He does the real ratings for basketball. Ignore the stupid coaches and the polls. Ken Pom is like WAR for baseball, and the writers and the coaches are like RBIs for baseball. The Wildcats were impressive. They weren't even in the preseason top 25. If they win the tournament, Mathurin, who scored 27 in their last game beating UCLA, will be the MVP. So any conversation about Canada has to start there. Obviously, Nebhard from Gonzaga is a starter on a team that we're going to talk about a lot, is the big favorite to win it. Purdue's got the tallest player in Big Ten history from Toronto. Star Zach Edey. He's 7'4", averaging almost 15 points per game. We got Canadians playing for Texas and Marcus Carr, TCU's Emmanuel Miller, Alabama's Charles Bediako. Andrew Nebhardt's little brother Ryan is on Creighton. Michigan's Caleb Houston, who might go in the first round, is Canadian. Yep. All these guys are scoring 8+ points on solid tournament teams. And that doesn't even include Shaden Sharp from Kentucky, who didn't play this year and still going to go top 10 in the draft.
Yeah, so not just a little, in the past, you'd find a sprinkling of Canadians, certainly at the big time programs. Now we're talking about prominent players at big time programs, and there's plenty of them to go around, and hopefully we'll see some of them deep into the tournament that will help improve their NBA draft stock. Were there any other big time players, non-Canadians, that you wanted to point out we should be looking for as things get underway?
This whole tournament is really top heavy with the stars. It really is unbelievable. The big favorite in the tournament is Gonzaga, and they're led by a center, Chet Holmgren. He's 7 feet. He could be the first pick in the draft. He's like Dirk on O and can be on D. And according to Yardbarker magazine, this is an unbelievable statistic. He could become the first white American drafted number 1 in the NBA since 1977. So
the
a lot
first
of
white guy,
first white guy from America taken number 1 in the draft since 1977. That's Chet Holmgren from the big favorite Gonzaga. So he's obviously a superstar. Every team in the big, who are the big teams to win it? Kansas has got Agbaji, who's a likely lottery pick.
Yep.
And Christian Braun, who's expected to go in the top 20. Kentucky, they got point guard Ty Washington. He's expected to go in the top 15. And center Oscar Chibabi from Congo, who's expected to go late in the first round. He was a first-team All-American. But check this out. We've got a whole new dynamic going on in college. It's going to affect Oscar. It's going to affect Kofi Cockburn from Illinois. NIL, name, image, likeness. Basically, college is letting athletes get paid, and the boosters pretty much call everything NIL. Remember in the olden days where they had to give cash in envelopes? Now they sign contracts, and they're saying now it might be more profitable for players to play in college than to go to the NBA if they're not a lottery pick.
If they're not a lottery pick.
If you're not a lottery pick and you're going late in the first round, early in the second round, the boosters want you back badly enough that they're willing to pay you a few $100,000 a year, and you get to chill in college for an extra year.
All right. Couple more general thoughts before we get to our brackets, and I'm going to talk about some numbers. Each and every year, you're going to hear the pundits, the experts. They're sort of like certain themes or certain indicators in terms of predicting success in the tournament. And you're going to hear this throughout the broadcasts. I want to know and I'll name a few of them, the ones that you'll hear the most of, and how much stock you put in those when you're looking at filling out your brackets or making game picks or picking a team or two to win the tournament, right? You're going to hear about, experience matters, especially in this, in this current day and age where one and done for top guys is prevalent. So one of them is experience. And we've seen that show itself in a number of tournaments later where teams that have juniors and seniors, they may not have superstars, but they have good experienced college players that benefits them. So experience is one that you're going to hear a lot of. 2, guard play as being a key to tournament success, right? The strength of your guards. 3, free throw shooting. That's a big one. And I'm always looking at free throw shooting. Do you remember who was it when Calipari was coaching Memphis and they basically lost the national championship because they couldn't hit free throws? And there are other examples of teams melting down at the charity stripe and costing them chances to win the whole thing. So experience, guard play, free throw shooting, coaching obviously is one that you're going to hear a lot of because those are the constants in college basketball. The players come and go. And then strength of conference. How strong is the conference that you play in during the course of the season? Of those, which are the most common, which do you pay the most attention to?
I'm going to talk about 3 things you just discussed because it's really important. You talked about experience, and we got to talk about this being Coach K's last year with Duke. His last regular season game hosting North Carolina and Cameron set records for prices for a regular season game. They got upset by North Carolina. He's got 4 first-rounders in the NBA suiting up, led by power forward Paolo Banchero and small forward Adrian Griffin Jr. Both expected to go top 10. By the way, Griffin Jr.'s father
assistant coach for the Raptors. Yeah.
Is the Raptors assistant coach. He's got 4 guys, but they're kids. They're not tried and tested. You look at the lines, and as a sneak peek, I like Texas Tech to beat them out. And the lines are similar for Texas Tech and Duke. That game is probably going to be a pick 'em, or Texas Tech could even be a small favorite in that game. And people are like, who does Texas Tech have? They have savvy veterans, and they play defense. And that
would be a second round game, right?
Third round.
Potential third round matchup. Okay.
Third round matchup to go to the Elite 8 and then to play Gonzaga. You talk about coaching. I value coaching a lot. Of the 8 top favorites in this tournament, and we touched on Gonzaga, we talked about Arizona, we talked about Kansas and Kentucky and Duke. There's also Baylor, who's got 2 top 20 NBA draft picks in Sochin and Kendall Brown, and Auburn, who's got the likely lottery pick if it's not Chet Holmgren and Jabari Smith. The 8th favorite is Villanova. They don't have a star, but you might remember Coach Jay Wright since he led Nova to championships in 2016 and 18. So yes, coaching matters and top coaching matters, and I value Villanova a lot for that reason. The last thing you mentioned that's really, really important to analyze, and I crushed March Madness last year. I was doing a lot of segments on TSM The Edge, and Karolnik was like freaking out because I rode the Pac-12 to glory. And the Pac-12 had a phenomenal tournament last year.
Yep.
You know who flamed out last year? And it's really, really, really important to note because they got a ton of the teams in this again this year, and that's the Big Ten.
Yeah, they have 9.
Got a whopping
they have
9
9
teams from the Big Ten.
By far the most. The next is 6.
Last year was a disaster. Ohio State lost as a 2 in the first round to Oral Roberts. Purdue lost in round 1 as a 4 seed. Iowa lost in round 2 as a 2. Illinois lost in round 2 as a 1. Again, is the Big Ten that good? It's just an East Coast bias to me. The leading Big Ten teams have Purdue star Jaden Ivey, and Iowa's got Keegan Murray. Again, 2 likely top 7 NBA picks. And the Pac-12 again got screwed. They only got 3 teams in the tournament, Arizona, UCLA, and USC. But watch out, the Pac-12 teams did good last year.
You may, a little foreshadowing, but, and I want to come clean. Okay, so coaching, experience, conference. Those are the 3 big ones of those that I threw out. that you're going to hear a lot of talk about. So, okay, one more thing, and then I want to come clean about something. How deep do you think this year's field is in terms of legit contenders that can win it all? Like last year was a weird year with the pandemic, and a lot of the blue blood programs were down. And what I mean by, if you don't know what I mean by blue blood programs, I'm talking about traditional powers. You know, Duke has become one, the Kentuckys, the North Carolinas, the Kansas. Gonzaga's sort of jumped into that fray as they've been a consistently strong program for many years now. But how deep do you think this field is in terms of possible winners? Is it 6 deep, 8 deep, 10 deep? Yeah, it is deep.
It's deep. Well, I mean, for starters, you got to look at a lot more than just the seeding. Obviously, the tournament committee did a shit job, as evidenced by the fact that 4-seeded Providence is only a 2-point favorite to South Dakota State. If the line doesn't move, no team in the history since 1985 that was rated 4th or better has ever been such a small favorite. That's just saying you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. Even Vermont, they're only a 4.5-point dog as a 4 seed as a 13 seed playing 4-seeded Arkansas in a virtual home game for them in Buffalo. Wisconsin's only a 7.5-point favorite as a 3 seed against Colgate. So some of the tournament numbers and rankings are off, but when you look at the brackets, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Duke, Baylor, UCLA, Purdue, Kentucky, that's already 7, Arizona, Houston, Tennessee, and Nova, we're at 11, Kansas, Iowa is 13,
wow,
and Auburn. We got 14 teams that I think realistically, at least in their minds, probably, or the Vegas odds have a pretty valid shot or argument behind it. So we're pretty damn deep.
All right. Well, we're going to get to the brackets in just a sec. But what I was talking about, as I pull up my bracket here, is I used to watch a shitload of college basketball. And over the years, my interest has waned. And the reason I'm saying this is because, as you alluded to off the top, there's a lot of people that become experts in these 2 days. I am not going to sit here and bullshit you and tell you I am an expert in any way, shape, or form. The amount of college basketball that I personally, and I know you have watched some, that I've consumed this season is extremely low. And so, like I said, in terms of me filling out a bracket, it was literally throwing darts. Yeah, I read some stuff, but people who just read a bunch of stuff about teams and from different pundits, you're not a fucking expert, okay? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an expert. And so when you're going to ask me why I chose this team as we go through our brackets, a lot of it is just feel, something I might have read, but I do not want people to sit here and think that I am an expert on college basketball at the moment, because I am not. In fact, you might call me a newbie, or like so many people who are filling, the billions of brackets that get filled out and place wagers on the tournament. I'm just a guy. You're the expert here. And so a lot of it, I'm going to rely on you and what you have to say. Mayor, I could disagree, and I may not really even have a reason, just to play devil's advocate. So I just want to point that out. Now, for those, we are going to go through, right? We've each filled out our bracket, and we're going to go through literally relatively quickly, but you may want to focus on certain games, because you are going to give game picks later on in the show when Jelani joins us. But I want to talk about some numbers, and these are just hard facts, Harley. And I'll let you comment as I go through some of them that you need to keep in mind when you're filling out your bracket. Okay? You ready for some numbers? And I don't want to get too deep because, it's hard. We're basically an audio podcast. I know we have video where you can see our bald heads, but otherwise we're an audio medium, and you can't digest too many numbers. But there's some that I want to point out. So first of all, The field expanded to 64 teams. Forget the 68 thing, right? We're traditional that way. It's 64 team tournament. It expanded in 1985. Okay, that's when it went to 64. It was 32 prior, as I recall. Now, only the lowest seeded team to ever win the tournament, you know this, right, is an 8 seed.
Yep.
And it was the first year it was expanded to 64, and that was Raleigh Massimino and the Villanova Wildcats in 1985 with the huge upset, right? Houston taking out, or sorry,
NC that
State.
Phi Slamma Jamma or whatever it is. Yeah, that's the one they always show of him running around with that classic 80s haircut on the court, going crazy, hugging his players. Yeah.
Was that Valvano too beating Houston? Anyway, 1985. So the lowest seed to ever win the tournament is an 8 seed. Okay. And here are some other numbers to consider. The first seed has only lost once ever in the first round, and that was actually 4 years ago. In 2018, when Virginia lost to Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. Mm-hmm. Only once has the number 1 seed lost, and only 8 times has a 15 seed beaten a 2 seed. One of them you mentioned was last year, but that's 8 out of like 140 games. So when you're filling out your bracket, if you're picking a 15 seed, you better have a darn good reason, because it does not happen very often. Some other things to consider. If you're wondering how the double-digit seeds do in the first round, on average, 6 double-digit seeds make it through the first round. Only 6 of all the double-digit seeds, okay?
Bet the over this year. The lines are tight. It'll go considerably over that number.
And only two double-digit seeds on average get out of the second round. So only 2 double-digit seeds on average make it to the Sweet 16. And by the way, do you know what the odds are to fill out a perfect bracket?
It's like billions to 1. Somebody was talking to me about, McAllister, that writes for the Star, was telling me about it, that you can get these prizes. You got a better chance, I think, of winning Lotto 649 and Lotto Max in the same week.
In the same week. Exactly.
Both. It's crazy. Yes. Good luck.
The odds of filling out a perfect bracket are 1 in 9.2 quintillion. I don't even know what that number is, but trust me, it's impossible. Another thing to consider, again, these are just some quick things to consider when you're filling out your bracket. Only once have all 4 number 1 seeds made the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Once. All number 1 seeds. That was back in 2008. The lowest seed to reach the Final Four, okay, the lowest seed to reach the Final Four is an 11. Okay, an 11. That's happened 5 times.
Those are the play-in games you're talking about. UCLA did it last year. VCU did it the first year of the play-in games with Jack Smart. I don't need to do research.
5 times.
I got it all up here.
5 times. You're 100% right. UCLA last year, but it's happened twice in the last 4 years. Loyola Chicago. Sister Jean.
We're going to talk about Sister Jean soon. She's a favorite. Who is she a favorite to? Ohio State. Okay, that shows you. The Big Ten, the stupid selection committee puts in 9 teams. They rank Ohio State as 7 seed. Loyola Chicago lost 7 games in their shit conference, and they're still a favorite over Ohio State. Everybody on the tournament committee should just resign, and they should just hire a couple of sharp bettors to do their job for them.
So again, you're going to hammer the Big Ten. I can feel it. So again,
short the Big Ten.
Number 11 is the lowest seed to reach the Final Four. It's happened 5 times, but twice in the last 4 years. UCLA last year, Sister Jean and Loyola Chicago in 2018. Here is one other statistical oddity that you might find interesting. No number 5 seed has ever won the tournament. Go figure. No 5 seed has ever won the whole thing, which I find bizarre. Okay, one more thing that factors into filling out your bracket. And when it comes time, when we talk about bets for the first 2 days, the first round. Upsets. What do we characterize as an upset? For the purposes of this discussion, it will be the lower seed is at least 2 spots below. In other words, we're not talking, 8 9s. Okay. 8 9s are not part of this equation. So there has to be at least a 2 seed, a two number difference for it to be considered a legitimate upset. In the first round, what do you think? And I'm not doing this to make you look bad, but just because I was kind of surprised by this. A number 10 over a number 7. What percentage of the time do you think that happens? 10
I saw
beats a 7.
I was surprised it's only 40%. I would have thought the 10s would have won more often than that. I mean, I think you got to be careful. Sometimes it's noise. I mean, if you look at the 10s this year, San Francisco's a small dog to Murray State. Davidson's virtually a pick 'em against Michigan State, and I really like that play. Loyola Chicago is a favorite over Ohio State as a 10. And then Miami's a small dog. If you look at it this year, the 7-10s look like virtual pick'ems. I was surprised when I saw that number.
You are correct, sir. 40% is the number. Number 11 over number 6. I was actually surprised because this is a lot closer to the 10 over 7 number. An 11 to beat a 6, 37.5% of the time. So more than 1 in 3 that an 11 will beat a 3. And similarly, we've heard about the 12s over 5s, right? That's a traditional thing you're going to hear about. 12s always beat 5s, not every game, but it happens a lot. 35%. So a little over 1 out of every 3, a 12 will beat a 5. 13 over 4 drops to 21.5%. A 14 over 3 is only 15%. And a 15 over a 2 is a little over 6%. So, pretty decent numbers for 12s over 5s, 11s over 6, and then not as big a gap to a 10 over 7 as you just talked about.
One of the reasons for that is for the 12-5s versus the 11-6s, or why they're the 12s. Historically, the at-large bids stop at the 11 seeds, and the 12 seeds are the best,
the better
small market conference, who are just way better than the 8th team in the Big Ten or the 6th team in the SEC. The coaching committee is under a lot of pressure to put these big name programs on, these blue blood programs. I mean, these teams like North Carolina and Michigan that had mediocre seasons. I mean, the truth is, if you're from a big program and you're not rated in the top 30 teams in the country and you can't get a 7 seed or less, you don't deserve to be there. You're not good. You're only there because you're a big name program and you're not as strong as the top teams from the small conferences.
All right. One more thing about upsets, because everybody loves carnage and chaos when they're watching the tournament, but just a couple other numbers to digest. The average number of upsets for the entire tournament, again, we're talking about a gap of 2 seeds, not 8s, 9s, and 4 5s. Right? Where the teams are clearly closely matched. The average number of upsets for the entire tourney is 12.4. So over the course, right, of however many games, 32 plus 16, right? You're talking about
there's 63 games, but some of them don't qualify for what you're talking about.
Correct.
So there's probably only about 40 games or so that qualify, and 12 are upsets.
Right. So about 1 in every 3 to 4.
Yeah.
There is an upset. So 12.4. The least amount is 4 in 2007, the most 19 in 2014. But last year, 18 upsets over the course of the tournament. So that's a little more recent. And by round, obviously the most happened in the first round because most games and most opportunities, a little over 6. And then it drops to just 3.7 in the second. And in the Sweet 16, it's under 2, 1.7. So, yeah, if you're going to pick upsets, look to the first round, maybe the second, but don't expect there to be a ton of them. So those are some numbers that I wanted to point out as you go to fill out your bracket. All right, you hear here it is. I'm pulling up the bracket. Hopefully I can
Jorey,
read
just one quick note before we get into the brackets.
Yeah.
We're not going to cover, obviously, the women's tournament today. There's too many
Yes.
bets and games. But I hope everybody stays tuned for our next regular show, which is going to be Friday, March 25th. We're going to cover value bets in the women's tournament later in the tournament. Couple cool storylines on the women's side. UConn is actually a 2 seed, which is unheard of them.
Yeah.
They're still one of the 3 favorites, along with South Carolina and Stanford, to win it. The women's tournament, unlike the men's, has less parity. The favorites usually win. South Carolina's plus 160 to win it. UConn's plus 350 and Stanford's 5-1. One of those 3 teams is going to win it almost 75% of the time, compared to less than 45% for the Zag, Zona, and Kansas, the 3 leading men. We will cover some value bets on the women's side next Friday. Also, of course, we got to revisit the NFL odds with Brady's impact in free agency.
Oh, yeah. And free agency will be ongoing. Although a lot gets done, a lot of the big moves get done in the first week or two. And we're seeing that as we speak. And I'm glad you pointed out, I was going to bring that up, that we're not delving deep into the women's tournament, but we will certainly talk about it on our next show as both tournaments roll along. All right, let's take a look at our brackets. I did fill it out, and again, for me, it literally was throwing darts because I just don't have the base of knowledge. And for me, yeah, I can read stuff. Everybody can read stuff. That's not hard. And it depends who you read and who you like to believe in. For me, I like the eye test. I want to see it with my own eyes, and I just don't have enough of that to give really informed picks. So which region do you want to start in?
Let's start with the West. Let's start with the Gonzaga game against Georgia State. We'll book a win for Gonzaga. They're a 23-point favorite. Let's talk a little bit about the Zags. They're the big favorite to win this tournament. They're less than 4-1, and the next team, Arizona, is at 6-1. Remember, they cruised last year to the Final Four, beat UCLA in a nail-biter, and then got thumped by a way more athletic Baylor squad. They have, we discussed him, one of the top picks in the draft in center Chet Holmgren. They got a deep team, and Canadian Andrew Nebhart is on them. The Zags are going to cruise for a while. Yeah, he was supposed to be the player of the year, and then he got a little injured. Holmgren got even better, and he's going to be the top pick. So, I mean, kudos to the Zags. I mean, when we were kind of getting into this and the Zags kept pulling off miracle year after miracle year as a 6 seed and an 8 seed and being disrespected by the tournament, I don't think any of us thought that they'd be the class of the blue-blooded programs, but good for the Zags because that's who they are right now. They are the unquestioned leader of college basketball.
Yeah. So obviously you like Gonzaga to get through to the first round. The 8-9 matchup is Boise State and Memphis.
And that's a great game. It's one of those pace games. Memphis is fast. Boise State is deliberate. We're going to discuss correlated parlays about which pace plays out. Memphis is a 2.5-point favorite. I got to tell you, I start and I use the spread to guide me through the picks, usually taking the favorites in round 1. You just get the odds in your favor. I don't necessarily like Memphis for value. In fact, I'll give you Boise State later on and explain why. But when you get a 2.5-point favorite, you're going to win 55-60% of the time, and you pretty much got to take the favorites in round 1. I like Memphis. They got Jalen Duren. He's their center. He's a top 10 NBA pick. They think he's like Dwight Howard. They got Penny Hardaway, and I took Memphis in this game.
Yeah, Penny is their coach. That's about all I can tell you about this year's edition of the Memphis Tigers. They're still the Tigers. And Boise State. I mean, I don't even remember them being in the tournament, right? They're known as a pretty decent football school. Anyway, moving on.
On the blue field.
On the blue field, exactly.
The next game we got is actually in Buffalo. UConn is a 6.5-point favorite at New Mexico State. New Mexico State won the WAC. They were the 1 seed and a 5.5-point favorite in the final versus Abilene Christian. They easily covered. You might remember Abilene upsetting Texas last year when they were a 14 seed. I had that on my upset watch last year. The TSN Edge guys were freaking out. I am taking UConn. The game's in Buffalo. It was good luck for them. I saw them with Okafor and Ben Gordon the championship year. It started there. The next best thing to being in Vegas to me is actually being in the stadium for the 4 games on the Thursday. That's pretty damn wild also.
Yeah, for sure. That's a ton of fun. Okay, so you got UConn to take down New Mexico State. That's the 5-12. Moving, oh God, I can't. These brackets are so small.
We got Arkansas as a 4.5-point favorite, and I took Arkansas
against
to
Vermont.
beat Vermont. Again, as a 4.5-point favorite, be very, very careful with Arkansas. I still took them. They made the Elite Eight last year. They lost to Baylor, who was the champion. They're led by Jalen Williams. He's a borderline first-round NBA pick. He played on the team last year. Kudos to Vermont. They're the Catamounts. They won their 3 conference tournament games by over 100 points. They were a 16-point favorite in the American East Final, and they won by, get ready for this, 39. Oh. And be very careful, Arkansas. I saw Vermont play in Buffalo. They're the team that UConn beat in the first round. Vermont travels well. They're a rich school. They can drive to Buffalo. Mark my words, when you're watching that game, I mean, generally speaking, the crowd likes the Dogs. The Catamounts are going to get the crowd is going to go wild. If the Catamounts start hitting threes, that's going to be a pretty crazy spot for Arkansas, who's got to schlep all the way to Buffalo to play on Thursday.
All right. The 6th seed, one of 6 SEC teams in the tournament, the Crimson Tide, better known certainly for football, as we all know. They're going to play the winner of one of the play-in games, Rutgers and Notre Dame.
I got Alabama. J.D. Davison, their point guard, is going to be a late first-round NBA pick. He's really good. We talked about Canadian content. Charles Bidacchio is a solid contributor. They should get by whoever it is they play in that one.
Texas Tech is a team that I've been seeing getting a lot of love as a bit of a dark horse team. And they are the 3 seed. I mean, not total dark horse, but they're not one of the top 16 teams in terms of seeding. They're a Big 12 team. They're playing Montana State.
So Montana State won the Big Sky tournament by crushing North Colorado by 21 points in the finals. They were only a 4.5-point favorite in that game, so they're coming off high. They were first in the Big Sky regular season also. I really like Texas Tech, not just in this game, but in general. They were ranked 9th by Ken Pom. They don't get the love of their Big 12 brothers, Baylor and Kansas, because they don't have superstars, but they're a solid team, and they're one of the top 5 defensive teams in the country, and defense wins championships. It's just as good to stop scoring as scoring, and you don't have the big names, so you're usually undervalued.
All right, to wrap up the West Region first round, we have Davidson, Steph Curry School, going up against Krzyzewski and the Duke Blue Devils, who are the 2 seed.
So first we got the Michigan State-Davidson matchup. Michigan State's a 1-point
Oh, sorry.
favorite.
Sorry. What am I talking about?
No worries,
I jumped ahead.
Around.
I jumped to the second round already.
Okay.
I already penciled Davidson and Duke in. Yeah, sorry. Spartans, traditional power out of the Big Ten, the 7-10 game against, as I said, Steph Curry, alum of Davidson.
So Izzo's team, I don't know if you know this, but Izzo just tied Coach K 24 straight tournament appearances. Max Christie, they got a star. He's a borderline first-round NBA pick. The public's going to be all over Michigan State. The odds makers know this and only made him a 1-point favorite. I usually take the favorites, not in this case. I've got Davidson advancing, and we'll talk about them more with the value bets.
All right. And then to wrap it up, Duke as the 2 seed against California State Fullerton.
So California State Fullerton came back from 14 down to beat Long Beach State by a point to win the Big West. They actually pushed the closing line. They were a favorite by 1. So anybody who line shopped won it. That's pretty cool for Fullerton. It should stop there. Duke should crush them. Again, that Duke team is one of the favorites are being discussed for a championship. I think they're inflated. They got 4 superstars, and they got Coach K's last run. But they're kids, and I don't really like their chances.
All right. So do you want to continue through that region, or you want to continue on with the rest of the first round and then circle back?
You tell me. Let's finish off the first round. Let's do the East now.
Okay, let's go East. Baylor's the number 1 seed, the 16 seed, Norfolk State.
So I like Baylor.
Of course.
To go far in this tournament at 14-1 odds. They got only Flo Thumba coming back from last year's champ, and he's a marginal contributor. They got 2 top 20 NBA draft picks in power forward Jeremy Sochin and small forward Kendall Brown. They're not getting as much love and respect, I think, as some of the 1 seeds. They're really athletic. They're really good. And I like Baylor going pretty far, obviously getting past that game.
Could be an interesting second round matchup, depending upon who comes out of the 8-9 matchup. And that's the North Carolina Tar Heels and Marquette. That's
so North Carolina
that's the 8-9 matchup.
Yeah, North Carolina is a 3-point favorite. I took North Carolina, but the caveat is I hate this play. In the first round brackets, you just got to take favorites of 3 points or more, because if not, you're just giving up too much value. But North Carolina is a fish play. They're overhyped because they won a big one versus Duke, and the names on their jerseys is North Carolina. When we talk bets, I'm going to bet Marquette plus the money. Again, awesome coach, Shaka Smart. He led VCU and Texas to the dance. He should put up a good fight here for Marquette. I penciled in North Carolina begrudgingly just because of the line.
All right. The 5-12 matchup, St. Mary's, good basketball program. They tend to be in the tournament pretty much every year. They're going to take on the winner of the Wyoming-Indiana play-in game. So the Big Ten could get another team into the 64-team field.
Yeah, and they'll get embarrassed by St. Mary's. I have them. Ken Palm has them ranked 16th. They entered the tournament 25-7. They're the ugly stepsister to Gonzaga because they both play in that conference, but they're a solid team. They beat Gonzaga in February. I don't know if you remember, February 26th. Upset the top 6 teams in the league all lost. One of them was St. Mary's beating Gonzaga. They play tough games. They beat Notre Dame, San Francisco, and Oregon. They lost to Wisconsin, Colorado State, and San Diego State. So basically, they know how to mix it up with the best. St. Mary's is going to beat whoever they play, probably Indiana. I think Indiana is a pretty good favorite over Wyoming.
Indiana, boy, have they fallen, huh? I mean, since the Bobby Knight days, they were a blue blood program, and they have not really been a factor. They had that little rebound about, 5-7 years ago. A little bit of a run, but they just have not been a top program now for a number of years. No. The next game's intriguing, the 4-13 matchup, and that is the UCLA Bruins, a Final Four participant last year, and they're taking on Akron.
Akron won the MAC by crushing Kent State in the finals. However, UCLA, again, they're not one of the top favorites listed, but they're near the top. Ken Palm has them number 8. We talked about it last year. They made the Final Four and almost upset the Zags. They're bringing
that was the buzzer beat. That was the Suggs buzzer beater to take them out.
That was the Suggs buzzer beater. They're bringing everybody back from last year's squad, including star Johnny Juzang, who scored 29 points in that near upset of the Zags. He's UCLA's leading scorer. You're looking for a hot hand. Nobody in the history of the NBA in the NCAA over a 3-game span did what he just did recently, which is over 80 points, 25 rebounds, 8 assists, 60% field goals, 80% free throws, no more than 5 turnovers and 5 fouls. Obviously, I read that stat. I didn't pick that up anywhere. Yeah. And the NBA, check this out. The NBA is putting out their own press releases. I guess they want to tick off a cultural diversity box. The NBA is speculating he could be a lottery pick. And if so, the NBA is bragging he'd be the first of Asian American descent to be taken as a lottery pick in the NBA. So that's kind of cool. UCLA is a strong team. They should beat up on Akron, and I think they could go pretty far.
All right. The 6-11 matchup is Texas and Virginia Tech.
So
and
this
we
is
all,
a game that
right? And Virginia Tech, right, just went on some kind of run.
Yes, they did. This is a game that tears me up because Texas is a 6 seed, only a 1-point favorite. Usually I like to take the lower seed because you're getting value. Not in this case. Texas plays D. Again, top 5 in the country. I like that, and they're not flashy. Virginia Tech was a bubble team at best. They got hot and won the ACC championship, knocking off Duke. I like Texas in this one.
Really? I have Virginia Tech. I'm riding the hot hand there. That's it. Riding the hot hand, right? Coming in with a ton of momentum. Good veteran coach. Mike Young, I believe, is their coach, and what a job he did. I mean, they just beat, the top 3 seeds in the ACC tournament. People do like to talk about momentum. We've seen it go both ways in this tournament, right? Cinderella team gets, the only way they can get in is with an automatic bid by winning their conference. They do it, and some flame out. Some ride that wave. I think Virginia Tech rides that wave and upsets Texas, but I don't have any good reason for that. As I said off the top, it's throwing darts.
Texas is only a 1-point favorite. So, I mean, from Vegas' standards, I don't think we'd call the 1-point dog winning an upset. I agree it's an 11-6 matchup. I like Texas in this one because if this game was being played 2 weeks ago, Texas would be a 2-1 favorite in that matchup. So after 35 games of play, Texas is a 2-1 favorite. Texas blew an 18-point lead and got bounced by TCU in their tournament. Virginia Tech went on a miracle run, but Texas is the better, deeper team. They played the good defense. I like Texas. That one I'd be happy to bet you for any kind of fun, stupid bet we could think of on the side.
I'm not backing dart throwing with money, my friend. I'm not doing it. I will defer to you most likely when it comes to actually putting money on these games. All right. Now, Purdue is a very intriguing team to me. Why? Not from the eye test, but just, following the season, if you will. They are a 3 seed. They're taking on Yale out of the Ivy League. And the Ivy League's caused some problems over the years in this tournament, Princeton being the main example. Harvard's had a run or two in the last number of years. But why? Purdue at one time was the number 1 team in the country, and they come in now as a 3 seed, as I said, taking on Yale.
Yep, Purdue's in the conversation for the national championship. Again, I think the Big Ten's a little overdone. They got a superstar in Jaden Ivey who will be a pleasure to watch. Yale, like you mentioned, they beat Princeton 66-64 as a 3.5-point dog to win the Ivy championship. I like Purdue. Obviously, in this matchup, they're a 15.5-point favorite. They're just too athletic for Yale.
All right, the Racers of Murray State. They're a 7 seed. They're taking on San Francisco. That's the 7-10 matchup in the East.
The committee screwed both these teams. They're both rated in the 20s by Ken Pom. They should be 6 seeds and getting to play inflated Big Ten teams, not each other. It sucks for them. I'll take Murray State. They're a 1.5-point favorite. Whoever wins this game should give Kentucky a battle in the next round.
Murray State's 30-2. Now, again, they don't play in one of the better conferences, but that's an impressive record, and we've seen some small conference teams that win almost all their games go on some tournament runs. I took the Racers here as well, just because I like the name Murray State Racers. Is that a good enough reason?
That's as good a reason as picking colors, team names, numbers, or anything else. In the last game in the bracket, we got St. Peter's playing Kentucky. St. Peter's won the MAC championship because Edert scored 20 of the team's 60 points coming off the bench. Note, this is the MAC, M-A-A-C. Maybe we should call it the MAC with 2 A's as the Metro Athletic Conference. The MAC winner was Akron. St. Peter's claim to fame is likely going to be that. Kentucky should crush them. We talked about Kentucky already. They're a really good team. Ty Washington, Oscar Chawabi, they look like the real deal. They should go deep in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty weird if Calipari, the head coach of Kentucky, doesn't have stud after stud. I mean, how many guys does he put into the NBA virtually every single year? It's usually one and done guys, so experience is not usually on their side. And Calipari teams traditionally have had trouble with free throw shooting, as I alluded to earlier. But he's always got a talented team. Let's skip to the South. Go. Yeah. Sorry. Did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll get into it in round 2 and its impact for round 3. You're right. A methodical veteran seasoned team like Murray State or San Francisco could give Kentucky a run, and they have a tough matchup in round 2 regardless.
All right, let's skip to the South. The number 2 overall seed, Pac-12 champs, Arizona Wildcats, will play the winner of a play-in game between Wright State and Bryant. And Bryant, there's a school name I don't think I've ever seen in the tournament. I don't know if I'm correct there, but Bryant. Who?
Yeah, maybe they have been, maybe they haven't been. I mean, they're
Yeah.
playing in a gimmicky playing game. It also sucks for those teams. Those teams that win the conferences should get a chance to play Arizona, not have to play each other to see if they qualify. The committee and this gimmicky 68 screws those teams, and that's the one I really don't like. I mean, I don't think Rutgers or Notre Dame or Wyoming or Indiana, any of them deserve to be in it if they're bubble teams from big conferences. But for those teams, Wright State and Bryant deserve the right to actually play in the tournament versus these one seeds. Arizona 6-1 to win it. We talked about them. They're second. Canadian shooting guard Benedict Mathurin is a star. If Arizona wins the tournament, and they might, he will be the tournament MVP, and that would be really exciting for Canada. And let's move on to actual real games. So we got TCU
8-9
and Seton Hall. That's an 8-9. It's a close matchup. I'll go with TCU because Canadian Emmanuel Miller is on the team and a significant contributor, and really what's a toss-up game.
Okay. The 5-12 matchup is the Houston Cougars and UAB, which is Alabama, Birmingham. Houston's become a factor again. You mentioned Phi Slamma Jamma back in the day when Guy Lewis was the coach and Akeem. I mean, they were an incredible team. Amazing they did not win a national championship. But Houston's back, and I don't know much about the Blazers this year.
So the Blazers have a really interesting story. They won Conference
USA.
Conference USA. They won a triple overtime game versus Middle Tennessee en route to the conference championship. Now they're playing Houston as an 8.5-point dog. As you mentioned, this Houston team is the real deal. They are back and strong. Houston is a team who went on a deep run last year. 7 contributors, each producing 7-8 points. They've got a really good team.
All right. Houston, we may be hearing more about them as things move along.
You will hear about them. They won the American Athletic Conference. They're bringing back 3 of their leading 7 players, Marcus Sasser, Roger Chaney, Trayman Mark. Again, they're a good team.
The 4-13 matchup is Illinois out of the Big Ten against Chattanooga. Any thoughts?
I got thoughts. Chattanooga is also kind of a cool Cinderella story. They did something they won their conference tournament on a buzzer beater in overtime. Check this out. They beat Furman. Furman did something no team has done in 10 years. They didn't miss a single shot in overtime, and they still lost the game. Do you know how hard that is to do?
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, think about it. It's like they hit a bunch of 2s, and I guess
I was just going to say, hit a couple extra 3s.
And some fouls, or you turn the ball over. It's unbelievable. Right. I like Illinois. They're a 7.5-point favorite. Illinois is led by Kofi Cockburn, first-team All-American. Again, he might forego the NBA because it's more profitable to stay in school now with the nil rule, the name, image, likeness, or boosters finding a way to structure deals to pay players. He's the only player in college with a 2010 average combo this year of points and rebounds.
I was going to point that out. Yeah, he's a 7-footer. And like I said, he's a 2010 guy, which is not as common as you might think in college hoops. Remember, they only play 40 minutes if you're new to the sport. All right, next up, it's the 6-11. Can I read that? Yep.
So Michigan is a 2.5-point favorite as the 11 seed. You talk against about Colorado gaps or quote unquote upsets. That's an upset. I have to pick Michigan because they're a 2.5-point favorite and you're giving up too much. It's such a gross bet, such a fish play. Michigan made it pretty far last year as a 1 seed. Then they got upset. They got upset as in the Elite 8 to Final 4 in a 51-49 squeaker to UCLA. They're bringing back a lot of the players, including star center Hunter Dickinson. And Canadian contributor this year is Caleb Houston. He's a borderline first-round pick. Remember, this is the team that lost Coach Juwan Howard because he hit the opposing coach. What did they do when they came back on the bubble? They lost to Indiana in the first game back as a dud. The committee shouldn't have even brought this team into the tournament. Colorado State's got David Roddy. He's a third-team All-American. Guess which team I'll be taking for value when we discuss value bets. But for the bracket, I got to take Michigan.
I took Colorado State.
Good for you. They're the better team.
That's what I read. That's what I went with. Again, no expert opinion there. All right. The 314 is the Tennessee Vols out of the SEC and Longwood. Another name that I haven't really seen much in this tournament.
Of course you haven't, because this is another Cinderella. This is the Longwood Lancers' first tournament ever.
There you go.
They crushed Winthrop as a small dog after a strong 15-1 season to win the Big South. But the party's over. Tennessee's a strong team. This bracket, I think, is a group of death with Arizona, Houston, Tennessee, and Villanova. They got 4 of the top 10 teams in this bracket, which sucks for all of them, and it sucks for Matherin's chances of winning a championship. He's going to be tested consistently. I got Tennessee actually going pretty far, and I like them.
All right. Moving right along, the 7-10 matchup, Ohio State Buckeyes and Sister Jean and Loyola Chicago.
So Loyola Chicago's a 1.5-point favorite in this matchup. I got them. Ohio State has E.J. Little. He's a second-team All-American. He's going to be a late NBA first-round pick. They also have Malaki Brannanen. He's a shooting guard from the NBA, also a late first-round pick. Loyola's a small favorite. They got a 24 Ken Palm rating. They beat Drake to win the Missouri Valley Conference after going 25-7 this season. Again, they were famous for Sister Jean. They should beat Ohio State.
I took them to just because of Sister Jean. No. They're actually a good team, and they're fun to watch. And the Buckeyes have massively underachieved from what I understand this year because they were highly ranked coming in. And you mentioned they have a couple potential first-round picks, but they just haven't put it all together. I'm going with Loyola Chicago there. And to wrap up the South bracket, the 2 seed, the Villanova Wildcats, are taking on the Delaware Blue Hens.
Delaware won their conference final. 2 players on their team, Davis and Carr, scored 35 of the team's 60 points. Nova's super strong. Coach Wright he's just good. They got him well coached. They should make short work of the Blue Hens, and I like Villanova in this tournament.
Final region, as we move our way through the first round, is the Midwest. And the number 1 seed, the Kansas Jayhawks. They will await the winner of 2 Texas schools in a play-in game, Texas Southern and Texas A&M CC.
I like Kansas,
right?
obviously.
That's Corpus Christi, right?
Yeah. I like Kansas not just in this game, but in the tournament. I think they drew a ridiculously easy bracket. We'll go through why in a minute. Again, they got Agbaji, they got Braun, they got 2 guys who are expected to go top 20 in the NBA. They're athletic, they're good, they're strong, and in a relatively weak conference.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I just blanked on the kid's name, but they had a guy who was like a preseason, like first or second team All-American who was hurt most of the year, who they just got back, right? And I think just got back for the Big 12 tournament, and he was a contributor, a very significant contributor. I'll go and find his name at some point, but I just blanked on it. So Kansas, even though I think I have them getting upset. But the 8-9 matchup, we're all expecting Kansas to move on as a 1 seed into the second round. They will play the winner of San Diego State and Creighton, the Blue Jays.
This is another pace game. San Diego State's a 2.5-point favorite and plays slow. Creighton plays fast. I like San Diego State. I always like the slow and methodical, running over the Blue Jays. Speaking of Blue Jays, wow, they're doing signings. There's talk about Freddie Freeman and Schwarber. I'm really glad baseball settled. This should be a great baseball season. And big deal. So we missed a couple of weeks of cold weather games, and the timing should be great to start watching baseball right after March Madness.
All right. Let's go to the 5-12 matchup. Another Big Ten team. One that I have going quite a ways for some reason. Again, I don't really have justification, but it's the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is also one of the Buffalo first round matchups, right? Iowa's taking on the Richmond Spiders.
So Richmond's got a cool Cinderella story of their own. They overcame not one, but two 15-point deficits early in the tournament rounds. And then they were down 6 points with a minute and a half to go to Davidson in the finals, and they won the Atlantic 10 in a bid. Remember, it was Richmond, the Spiders, who upset Syracuse in March Madness, the first 15 ever to knock off a 2. Now they're playing Iowa as a 10-point dog and a 12 seed. I like Iowa in this game. Iowa's a very popular pick in this tournament. Keegan Murray is rated why. He's rated very highly, and Iowa's actually got disrespected with the 5 seed, but they got this great draw because next they're playing the Providence South Dakota State winner, and that's the game we talked about, the seeding disaster. So I got Iowa winning there. I took South Dakota State. They're a 13 seed. They're only a 2-point dog. What a disaster for the committee.
Whoa. A 13 seed is only a 2-point dog?
Yeah, Providence was disrespected and shot on all year. Everybody thinks they're a farce, and clearly the bettors support that. South Dakota State won a perfect 18-0 in the Summit League, won the conference tourney. They actually pushed as a 6-point favorite in the finals, winning 75-69. We talked about this earlier. Since expansion, a 4 seed has never closed as a 2-point favorite or less. 3 times they closed as 2.5 or 3-point favorites, and 2 of those 3 times they lost. That'll be Providence's legacy, and that'll be the end. I hope nobody has Providence going that far, since its odds are they might not even get out of the first round.
I know I was very surprised there. I did take a look at some of the lines, and I took South Dakota State because
nice, Jorey. You're on top of things.
I took them. That's really one of the very few upsets, because you haven't heard me talk about my picks here because they're inconsequential. I'm just chiming in if I have an upset or something. And that is the one, because I looked at the line and said, when I see something like that, the first thing I say is the bookies are telling me something.
Correct.
And so I'll take their lead on this one. And that's one of the very few upsets I took in the first round, but I'm taking South Dakota State. All right. The 6-11 game, LSU and Iowa State. SEC versus Big 12.
LSU's a 4.5-point favorite in this game. I got LSU. Terry Eason's a third-team All-American. He's going to be an NBA likely lottery pick that they're comparing to OG. I guess even maybe better than OG if he's a lottery pick. They're the team playing without head coach Will Wade, who was fired last week for a bunch of violations. He was caught on tape paying a recruit back before NIL made this stuff legal. So, I mean, he'll be famous for being the last guy fired for tampering with players, since you can pretty much tamper because of NIL. I have LSU advancing.
They're a good defensive team. They're a good defensive team from what I understand. One of the best in the SEC. Is that correct?
Yes, they are. They're strong. And I have them playing Wisconsin. Another committee error is going on here. A 3 seed should never only be a 7.5-point favorite.
They're playing Colgate. They're playing Colgate, by the way.
They're playing Colgate. So they're less than 75% to beat Colgate. Wisconsin has Johnny Davis. He's a first-team All-American. He's a top 10 NBA pick that they're comparing to Manu Ginobili. Colgate's coming off crushing Navy by 18 points as a 7-point favorite to win the Patriot League. I got Wisconsin winning this game, but again, it should be closer than people expect, and the committee dropped the ball on that one.
The 7-10 matchup is the USC Trojans and the Miami Hurricanes. 2 traditional football powers who have good basketball programs too.
This is a better matchup in football, or at least it would have been 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
USC's a 1.5-point favorite. I took them to advance. They made the Elite Eight last year. They're bringing back 3 of their 6 major contributors in Isaiah Mobley, Drew Peterson, and Max, I'm going to get this right, Agbonkpolo. And they should beat up on Miami.
And the last first round game is the 2 seed Auburn Tigers taking on Jacksonville State, which they've been in the tournament before, but they're not a regular.
The way they made the tournament, do you know how Jacksonville State got in? This is the weirdest ruling I've ever heard.
Lay it on me.
Jacksonville State won the regular season of their tournament.
Of their conference.
Regular season in their conference. But in the tournament, they lost to Jacksonville in the finals. But the team that won the finals
Hold on. Jacksonville lost to Jacksonville?
No, Jacksonville State lost to Jacksonville in the semis.
Okay.
This is Jacksonville State.
Right.
They won the regular season of their conference.
Yes.
But they lost in the semifinals to Jacksonville of the conference tournament.
Okay.
But Bellarmine, or Bellarmine, I don't even know how to pronounce this team, beat Jacksonville in the finals. You would think that means Bellarmine gets to go to the tournament. But no, they just moved to the conference 2 years ago from Division II. And there's a rule you're ineligible for the first 3 years to go to March Madness.
Oh, my.
So because of that, whoever wins the regular season gets to go. So Jacksonville State, I guess, was cheering pretty hard. The Gamecocks got lucky. Bellarmine beat Jacksonville. So the regular season winner, Jacksonville State, managed to get here, all for the right to get crushed by Jabari Smith and Auburn. But it's kind of a cool story of how they got here.
All right, so let's circle back to the West and let's go through what at this point now. Let's take it through the rest. Like we'll go through the region, right? We'll stay the region to the Final Four. Okay,
no problem.
All
so
right.
To me, in the second round, the picks are usually obvious, and by that I mean you got to look at the spread gap from round one. For example, even though I think Auburn is inflated, and we got to discuss this, Auburn went 16-0 at home this year. That inflated their record. Without that, they're not a 2 seed. But there's no home court in March Madness, and definitely not like a real true home court. So I think Auburn's inflated. Nevertheless, even though I think USC could give them a game and maybe beat them, I'll always be taking a team like Auburn in the second round because USC has such a tough first round matchup and Auburn doesn't. So I look at what I call the spread gap.
All right. Do you want to then? We just finished up the Midwest. Do you want to stay there?
Oh, no. We can start.
Okay,
We can go.
Let's go back.
So I got Gonzaga beating Memphis or Boise State. Obviously, I don't think that's rocket science.
Okay. And then
I took UConn
right
to advance over Arkansas. They're a bigger favorite in round one. They're a 5 seed. You add it up. That's great. I got Texas Tech advancing. Again, strong defense, not flashy. And I got Duke. So I got pretty much favorites going on with the exception of, I guess, UConn in that 4-5.
I took Bama to upset Texas Tech. One of the very few upsets on my grid. I don't have a very good reason. Just I know the SEC is pretty good conference right now. And I've been hearing about Texas Tech being overrated. So I took Bama to upset Texas Tech just to be different. So
okay, well,
so that leaves. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I got Texas Tech winning the championship. So I'm thrilled.
Nelly.
I'm thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, but I don't know shit. So
no. I understand. To me, they're not overrated. They got a great Ken Palm rating. They got a great D. They don't have superstars. So you add that up. Great defense, no superstars, and they're undervalued.
Right.
They're only 20-1 to win the championship. Think about that. They got to knock off Duke in Coach K's last year with 4 future NBA first rounders and the best team in the tournament, Gonzaga, just to get to the Final Four. And they're only 20-1 to win it. Vegas and the books are telling you this is the real deal and a good team. I also like taking teams. I designed my bracket and my pool, assuming I'm doing it for the boys pool. So it's a 100-person pool. And to win a 100-person pool, what do you got to do? You can't take Gonzaga to win it and then hope for one of 30 guys that get lucky. I think I'm the only guy in the pool that's taking Texas Tech to win it. If Texas Tech is winning it 20%, 1 in 20 times is 5%. if I'm 1-5, 1-6 to win a pool where there's 100 guys, I mean, that's pretty good. So,
all right, so let's just wrap up the West to get us at least to the Final Four. So you had Gonzaga advancing out of the second round.
And then I got Gonzaga and Texas Tech. I got Texas Tech beating Duke. I really, really hope that matchup occurs because that's going to be a pick'em type game where nobody's going to understand how it's possible that a bunch of guys nobody's ever heard of from Texas Tech are pick'em against 4 future NBA first-round picks and Coach K. But the reality is they're a good team and they play defense and they're veterans and they're experienced and they're going to create nightmares for the future NBA players on Duke.
And so who did you have playing Gonzaga in the Sweet 16?
UConn.
UConn.
I took UConn.
Okay. So Gonzaga, UConn, Texas Tech, Duke. Texas Tech to take down Duke. Gonzaga to take down UConn, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and then
Texas Tech to beat Gonzaga and take that Final Four spot.
Well, that's obviously the tough one. The one time they will be a 2-1 dog. They won't be more than a 2-1 dog, even to Gonzaga. And it's tough for Texas Tech coming off the big win of Duke. And if they got to play Gonzaga, I mean, it's a tough road for them. But again, I respect the odds, and I think they got a shot there.
All right. In the East, let's go through the second round matchups and who you have coming out of that region. This is my upset region for me. I'll tell you who when we get there. So you have Baylor obviously going through. They're the 1 seed to the second round to play. It was North Carolina, as I recall.
Yeah, I don't like North Carolina. I like Baylor to win that. I like Baylor to win their region. They're good. They're athletic. Again, they got 2 top 20 NBA picks. They know how to play that style. They did it last year. They're going to do it again. They're going to have a tough matchup in the Elite Eight. I got UCLA beating St. Mary's. It's a good game. They're good teams. Again, either of those teams is going to give Baylor a run, but I know Baylor is going to get past North Carolina, and I don't know who's going to win that UCLA St. Mary's. So I got Baylor going to the Elite Eight.
Okay.
I got Purdue. Again, Texas and Virginia Tech is a tight matchup. Purdue should crush Yale. I got Purdue advancing, and I got Purdue advancing past Kentucky. I got Kentucky beating Murray State or San Francisco, but that's going to be a tough matchup for Calipari's team. They're going to be playing seasoned veterans, and so I got Purdue, not really upsetting because they won't be much of an upset. I got Purdue going to the Elite Eight against Baylor, and then I got Baylor going to the Final Four.
All right, this is where I took the UCLA Bruins to mow down higher seeded opposition, including Baylor. I think, again, last year they went on that crazy run, and I think that counts for something. I think Mick Cronin is proven to be a pretty darn good coach, and they were a buzzer beater away from playing in the final last year, right? They took Gonzaga to overtime,
and they're bringing
in the Final
back
Four.
The same team. All those guys are back to run it again. That's crazy.
Experience factor, guard play, and I'm pretty sure they're a pretty good free throw shooting team. I have to double check that. But I have UCLA coming out of that region, taking out Baylor and then Kentucky. I had Kentucky over Purdue. Again, I'm throwing darts here, people, but we're going through our brackets. We're going to tell you who we took. I've got UCLA as the upset special to come out of the East. All right, let's go to the South. We had Arizona coming out of the first round. You had Seton Hall or TCU, I forget.
TCU, because they got the Canadian. That's a pick 'em to me, and I didn't have a feel for the game.
And I'm assuming you're going to take Arizona to beat Seton Hall in the second round?
Yeah, I got Arizona.
Or TCU, excuse me.
Yeah, I got Arizona going to the Final Four. I like Houston a lot. I almost took Houston to go to the finals instead of Texas Tech. Again, I always like to take a team that's around 20 to 30 to 1 where you think you're going to be the only guy in a 100-person pool. Again, I designed my bracket with a 100-person pool in mind. We'll talk about soon what I would do if there were only 10 guys or 5 guys in the pool. I like Houston, but Houston's got to play a tough Illinois team to get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
and Arizona should make short work of Seton Hall or TCU. So I got Arizona, but Houston can definitely go on a run. This was the toughest of death.
Yeah, you said that earlier. I wanted to just jump in to say, because Houston, Illinois might be the best second round matchup we'll see, right?
100%. And Tennessee and Villanova are, in terms of Elite Eight 3-2s, like you look at that Tennessee-Villanova matchup compared to like a Wisconsin and Auburn. I think Wisconsin's inflated because they're in the Big Ten. Auburn's inflated because of that 16-0 home record, which is gaudy. Tennessee and Villanova are two championship caliber teams, and they got to play each other just for the right to play Arizona, just to get to the Final Four. You got to stay away from that bracket.
Okay, so Tennessee will move through, as you said, to the Sweet 16 over either, the winner of Colorado State and Michigan, and you like Villanova to take out the winner of Ohio State and Loyola. So you would have Tennessee, Villanova, Arizona, Houston. You're taking Arizona over Houston. And are you taking Villanova to beat Tennessee?
I actually took Tennessee only because I think Villanova is going to be tested harder by Loyola Chicago than I think Tennessee will be by, definitely, if it's Michigan. Michigan should wallop them. I think Tennessee has a slightly easier path than Villanova to get there. So for that reason alone, I took them. But that'll be a pick'em type excellent game, Villanova, Tennessee.
Yeah, I have them meeting as well. And then it's Arizona and Villanova for the right to go to the Final Four. And you said you're taking the Wildcats. I have them there too, but it wouldn't surprise me if Villanova made it out of this region either.
Or Tennessee, or even Houston or Illinois. Yeah. Again, this is stacked, this region, which means you cannot take anybody there going to the finals because getting out of there is just too hard.
Okay, which brings us to the Midwest.
Now, the Midwest to me is the joke.
Right.
If I was in a 5 or 10 person pool, I would be taking Kansas to win the championship because to me, they've got a cakewalk compared to everybody else in all the other conferences. So again, I don't like Auburn as a 2 seed. The 16-0 home record just bothers me. It inflated their record and their line. They're not as good. Wisconsin and Iowa, the 3 and 5 seeds, are from the Big Ten, which just tends to be inflated. And we've talked about Providence as a 4 seed being a complete joke that could lose in the first round. So the committee must really, really, really love Kansas because they've got a super easy road to me to get to the Final Four.
How much do you like Iowa? Because I'm like you. I always want to step a little bit outside the box, and I'm thinking I tend to go in a pool with 100 people, 200 people, and you can't just take all the chalk. Iowa's on some kind of roll here, right?
They won the Big Ten champ. They won the Big Ten championship. They got Keegan Murray. They got one of the best players in the country.
Yep.
If you buy into the Big Ten, and I can tell you they have a lot of respect for them in Vegas. They're a 5 seed, and they're in the 20 to 30 to 1 odds to win the tournament. Yep. I mean, you look at some of the other 5 seeds like St. Mary's and Connecticut. Nobody's even discussing them to win a championship. Now, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're going to be a big favorite in round 2 over Providence. They don't have to play a UCLA or an Arkansas or an Illinois. Their 4 seed sucks. As a result of that, the pathway becomes a little easier. And if you believe in the Big Ten, sure, do it. I just think the East Coast bias and this obsession with the Big Ten that keeps flaming out in the tournament is a disaster. And the truth is the committee's not responsible to anybody. So they want to keep on picking Big Ten teams. All you can do is make some money betting against them.
So I took Iowa to take out Kansas and then Auburn in the Elite 8 to take the last Final Four spot. So just to recap, your Final Four is?
Texas Tech and the 3-1 seeds.
Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, Baylor. I've got Gonzaga, Arizona, UCLA, and Iowa.
Okay.
So who do you have winning the Arizona and Kansas game?
Kansas. Again, Arizona is probably a better team, but I believe Kansas is going to be there, and I don't think Arizona is going to be there. They're just slightly more likely to get there than Houston, Illinois, Villanova, or Tennessee.
Okay. And who do you have? Texas. I have, by the way, Arizona going to the final, taking out Iowa in the Final Four. And who do you have between Texas Tech and Baylor in that?
I got Texas Tech all the way in a 100-person pool. I think I'm going to be the only one in the boys pool taking Texas Tech to win the championship. and that's all I need to win it. I like my odds. It's like I increase my odds. Think about it. In a 100-person pool, if you're drawing darts, you got a 1 in 100 chance. If my chances are 1 in 20, 1 in 30, I just did pretty good.
All right. I've got UCLA to avenge the loss last year against the Zags. And so Pac-12 only has 3 teams in the tournament. I've got 2 of them in the final. Arizona Wildcats raise the trophy, taking out UCLA. And again, if for some reason you're just tuning in, I'm throwing darts here, folks. But I also, I'm looking at teams that could win that aren't favorites. Because especially as you talked about, when you're going in a big pool, you can't just take all the favorites because your chances of winning the pool are diminished. So you might as well take some shots, right? Yeah, you have to have some chalk because that's the way the tournament goes. There's always chalk that will get through. But again, only once have all 4 number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four. So you got to pick some upsets along the way if you're looking to win a bracket pool. Agreed?
I like it. I like the Pac-12. I like the strategy, and best of luck with it.
All right. So after about 90 minutes of hearing the 2 old ball guys talk, we needed to inject some youth and another voice into the discussion as we're making our way through March Madness for 2022. And it's our pleasure to welcome the Parleh's resident college hoops expert. I hope that's true. It's Jelani Goodridge-Reid, who you see all the time putting out great content on the Parleh. Welcome to the Parleh Sports Betting Show, Jelani, and we're looking forward to chatting here about first-round picks, right? Game picks, futures, and any other comments that you want to make in terms of the tournament. And so I'll start, Jelani, with something I asked Harley off the top. If you're going to watch the tournament, as so many of us will, you're going to hear a lot of talk about certain themes that the color guys and even the play-by-play guys and the studio guys in particular are going to talk about. And that's certain indicators that can predict tournament success. And some of the ones you're going to hear are experience, right? Especially in this day and age of one and done, guard play, free throw shooting, coaching, and strength of conference. So those 5 things, which are the ones that you pay the most attention to when you're handicapping this tournament?
There's so many things that go into this tournament, and especially this year, the funny thing is anyone could win the tournament. I don't think there's anyone that's top heavy. Of course, you're talking about Gonzaga and, they're 26-3. They've beat everybody. We get all of that. But when I'm really looking at it, I'm looking at the experience. Like you mentioned, I like to see the seniors, the juniors, the guys that have been there, that have been in these spots before. There might be some teams that are young, up-and-coming teams that we've seen, but have they been here? Have they been in this moment? We don't know. So that's why I'm leaning and looking at teams like a team like UCLA. This is a squad that was there last year. Remember, they were a first 4 team, right? The first 4 doesn't really, see teams go all the way. It was only VCU in 2011 and UCLA last year who were first 4 teams that made it to the Final Four. So, given their experience, they could make another run, in comparison to a team like, let's say, probably Duke. Duke, we do know that, of course, they have Coach K, and, it's the last year of Coach K being there. But a lot of young guys are on that squad, haven't been in these spots. They do have the talent to beat anyone in the tournament, but how are they going to show up against a team like Gonzaga? What if they play a team like Texas Tech, who made the Final Four a few years ago? Good coaching in that program. They have great defensive talent over there, and they've been in these spots. How are they going to deal with a team like that? How are they going to deal with these teams? So there's so many things that play into it, like you mentioned, but I do look at the experience. Jay Wright's Villanova squad. They've been here over the past 5 years doing it, Sweet 16s, the Elite 8s that they've made, and of course the Final Fours that they've reached. So you want to lean towards teams that can, just show you that they've been here, they've done that, they have guys that have experience in these spots, because, these are one and done games, and you're going to need for your squad to be ready.
Harley, you want to jump in?
Well said, Jelani. I agree 100%. I had Texas Tech winning the tournament. I've got Texas Tech as a value bet. I think that the public will be all over Duke and Coach K and the 4 future NBA first-round picks. But basketball is a team sport. This isn't the dunk competition.
And one of the other things that I asked Harley off the top that I'll ask you as well, and you said experience is something that you really look at. And you mentioned a bit off the top, how deep do you think this field is? Like, in terms of who could win the whole thing? Harley said it may go 10, 12 deep. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do, because when you're talking about, prior to the season, when you're talking about preseason, a lot of people were looking at Gonzaga, Duke, UCLA probably to make another run. But once the season began, more teams entered the conversation. Auburn, you're talking about Villanova, they're back. Of course, you're talking about a team like UConn. UConn is a 5 seed. They can make noise. A team I love, I think, has the best value this whole tournament. You're looking at Iowa at plus 2,200, according to DraftKings. I think they can make a run to the Final Four, given their talent, offensive talent that we've seen from them. They could win it all. You're talking about a team like Kansas, Kentucky, Baylor, of course, the defending champions. They might make another run, right? So there's so many teams. I think, yes, what you guys have mentioned, this group, 12 to 15, I see. Not even 10. I think there's more than that. And that's why this tournament might be one of the better tournaments we've ever seen. The only problem is, the star power isn't really there in comparison to previous years, like when we saw Zion Williamson and John Morant and all those guys. But there are plenty of teams that will make noise this tournament. So, look, if you're a bettor out there, if you believe in a team that no one's really talking about, just put their name down, right? Just do it, because you don't know what's going to happen this year. This year, it really indicates that the NCAA is entering this era of parity, right? Because in the 2010s, we saw a lot of teams, repeatedly making runs like Duke, like Carolina, Villanova. But now,
the Blue Bloods,
the
Blue Bloods,
and now I think we're moving to an era where we're seeing new teams that can make runs. Even Wisconsin, I didn't mention them. They're a 3 seed, but they can make a run. Tennessee, I think they're even better than a 3 seed. They can make a run as well, and Purdue. So yeah, I think this is really deep.
All right, let's go ahead.
Jelani mentioned 14 or 15 teams, and he still hasn't mentioned Matherin's Arizona Wildcats, who are the second favorite to win it. That's how deep this tournament is.
Yep.
And to your point, Jelani, they were nowhere to be found in the preseason prognostications, Arizona, and now they're a 1 seed.
I know.
So that's another indicator of the potential depth of this field. All right, so let's stay here with odds to win it all. Let's look at the futures before we get into plays for the first round games, right? Because that's the only real opportunity we can to make game plays. A couple things that I'll point out. I always like to take, the 360 or 30,000 foot view to start. The pre-tournament favorite has actually won 7 of the last 16 tournaments. So that's, over 40%. Obviously, Gonzaga is in that role right now. And I'll save the other number in terms of first round betting in a moment. And there will be an estimated $3.1 billion wagered on this tournament. It is bigger than the Super Bowl, but obviously it's 10 days, not 1. So Gonzaga is the favorite to win it all. Again, these numbers may vary a little bit depending on the book you're looking at. The one that I was looking at last night and this morning, Gonzaga is about plus 325. So 3.25 to 1 to win it all. Arizona, as Harley just mentioned before, is the second choice at 6 to 1. Third choice is Kentucky at 9 to 1, and they're a 2 seed. So the bookies are telling you something about the Wildcats. The defending champion, Baylor, is 11 to 1, followed by Kansas, another 1 seed at 12 to 1. Then Purdue at 14, Duke at 15, Auburn at 16. I can go on and on. You mentioned Iowa, the book that I was looking at. You mentioned 22 to 1. I got them at 28 to 1, and I have them going to the Final Four. So, as Harley knows, I'm never betting the favorites when I'm betting futures, ever. I'll look
Don't.
at a medium shot and a long shot, but I'm going to throw it to you first, Jelani. Who's your value play and who's your long shot play to
I
win it all?
think, yeah. I think good value. Like I mentioned before, you're looking at Iowa. You're talking about Keegan Murray. He's one of the best scorers in the nation. This guy averages 24 points per game. He could do anything on the floor for you in terms of shooting. So when you're talking about his shot selection and you're talking about what Fran McCaffrey has to work with, he has Murray, and along with Murray, they have a plethora of shooters around him. So if you can't handle Murray, you're gonna have to deal with Bohannon. You're gonna have to deal with McCaffrey's son, sorry, not Christian McCaffrey, but I know, like the sons that he has on his team, and you have a multiple groups of guys in terms of their bigs. The problem is the bigs, sometimes they don't always show up for you, so that could be hurtful in terms of your pick. But in general, you're talking about a team that has Keegan Murray, a guy that's going to be a household name by the end of this tournament, because he's definitely one of the best players in not only the Big Ten, but in the country. But yeah, like Patrick McCaffrey, Jordan Bohannon, these guys could play. They're fourth in the nation in points per game, as a team at 83.8. So when I'm talking about, their region, I think they could come out of there. I don't really see it being tough. You have with the Wisconsins. I'm not sold on Wisconsin. Providence, I have them losing in the first round. That's just me.
Yeah.
And then you're probably gonna meet up with, a team like maybe Auburn, probably. But Auburn, the problem with them is, at times their offense doesn't show up, and it can't just be Jabari Smith. So that's why I can't really or fully put all my stock into the Tigers this year, despite the fact that they're a 2 seed. And then Kansas, they do have an overall group that could beat anyone in this tournament. But yeah, the greatest value here for me in this tournament, Iowa. They could win this whole thing, but they could also lose. And I say that because you're so reliant on their shooting that if there's a game where it doesn't show up, then yeah, they're probably going to be susceptible to a tough game or dealing with a tough team, in terms of that area. But yeah, the Iowa Hawkeyes for me. And then a team that I think a lot of bettors are going with this time around, Gonzaga. But I don't think that you should go here, because they've showed you all the time under Mark Few they're a viable contender. They always make the Final Four, blah, blah, blah. But can they get it done? That's the question that I've had. I love Mark Few. I love this program. But the problem with them is they could fall to certain teams in their region, right? The West is not easy by any stretch. You're talking about Duke, who I spoke about a bit before. You're talking about a team in Texas Tech who has the defense that could hang with anybody in this tournament. You're talking about UConn. So I understand that Gonzaga had the best net rating this year, NCAA evaluation tool. They're first in BPI, so that's the power index, right? But you can't really put all your stock into it, because yes, Chet Holmgren is most likely going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. We all know that. But this team, they can't really hang with the athletic teams, right? And there are plenty of athletic teams in their bracket. Duke, Arkansas, they have to deal with, right? Memphis, who they're probably going to play. I think they're going to play in the second round. That's going to be a tough game, right? So I don't think you should put all your stock into them either. Just understanding the fact that Western teams, teams out West, they don't always win this tournament. The last 45 tournaments, we've only seen 3 Western teams win the national championship. UNLV, UCLA, and Arizona in '97 was the last, that we really saw. But yeah, the question is, can Mark Few get it done? I don't know about that. But yeah, value, Iowa. And then the last team I just want to, quickly add, Purdue. Purdue, for me, when you're looking at I was looking at the odds from DraftKings, they're at 2,000. So we'll see what happens with that. The line has moved, in favor of Purdue. I think a lot of people are leaning towards Purdue right now because they're understanding Jaden Ivey's on that squad. Jaden Ivey will be a name that you guys and everyone watching the tournament will remember. because he is talented. He gives me a lot of Ja Morant vibes. He's a bigger version of him. He's a 17-5-3 type of guy on 46% shooting, right? And 12 out of 19 games in this calendar year, he's reached or gone above that number of 17 points per game. He could score and he could play make for the Purdue Boilermakers. The problem with them is the defense, right? They could win the tournament. I do think they can make the Elite Eight. And I believe that they're going to play UCLA in the Elite Eight. The problem with them is, despite the fact that they have a top 4 team in terms of 3-point shooting, they have one of the best offenses in the country, and given the fact that they have Travion Williams and Toronto native Zach Edey, 2 good big men that complement Jaden Ivey, the defense has lapses in play to the point where you can't put all your stock into them. So don't be surprised if they win the tournament, but don't be surprised if they let you down. They do have good value there, though. So watch for Purdue. They could win this thing. I'm not sold. I want to make them the national champion, but I'm not sold as of yet. But yeah, 3 teams to keep your eye on: Iowa, Purdue, and then the Gonzaga thing. Don't put all your stock into it. I'm telling you, the number 1 seeds do fall all the time, and I get it. Gonzaga is always a favorite, but just don't go favorites. Don't go favorites, especially in this year's tournament. A lot of parity.
Yeah, so Purdue can be anywhere from 14-1 to 20-1. Yeah. Iowa is anywhere from 22 to 28-1, depending on the book. What do you see in Harley, as I see you're ready to jump in here with your value plays?
Again, I don't trust the Big Ten. I've shorted the Big Ten, so I would obviously short Iowa and Purdue. I like Baylor and Kansas as 1 seeds that aren't getting as much respect and love as 1 seeds usually get. Coach Drew is back for Baylor. Everyone's touting Kentucky. The Wildcats have a tougher path to me with Murray State and Purdue. And Baylor's got 2 top 20 NBA draft picks in Sochin and Kendall Brown. I take a shot, or consider taking a shot, with Baylor. Kansas, again, rarely do I bet these 1 seed favorites. I think the stars line up amazing for Kansas. The relatively weak bracket. Providence sucks. Wisconsin and Iowa, I don't trust the Big Ten. Auburn, I think, is inflated at home. I think they got a relatively easy path to the Final Four. To me, the two best value.
Sorry. And those are, Baylor's around 11-1, Kansas around 12-1, just so people know what the numbers are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your value play?
In terms of my value plays, Texas Tech and Houston. And again, you're better off with Texas Tech and Houston actually betting them to win each round and rolling over the money, because the bettors will bet up Duke. They'll bet up Gonzaga. I mean, unless Texas Tech gets lucky and like a UConn knocks off Gonzaga, Texas Tech is really going to have to earn their championship. But Texas Tech and Houston play D. They're good teams. They're deep teams. They don't have the flashy scorers. They don't have the guys Jelani mentioned. They don't have Keegan Murray, and they don't have Jaden Ivey. But at the end of the day, the bettors like betting the big name players. So if you can bet a well-rounded team, Texas Tech plays D. They don't have 4 first-round NBA picks. That's what Duke has. But they've got a team that could play D. So I take a shot with those guys. And then the one other future bet I like is LSU to win the region at 12-1. Again, they play D, and they're playing in a relatively weak conference. With the exception of Kansas, I don't trust any of the top 5 seeds in that conference. So I would take a shot with LSU there.
Yeah, you've been harping on the Midwest arguably being the weakest region. You think it's the weakest region from top to bottom. So that would make sense. If you think it's the weakest region, take, a team that's kind of middle of the pack, and LSU's a 6 seed to win that. And you said that was 12-1. All right. So there's your value plays in terms of futures to win it all and or win a region. Now, we have 32 games to choose from, right? Thursday and Friday, the first round. We're ignoring the play-in games for the moment. So I will point out a statistical oddity that you've touched upon throughout this show, Harley. 4 lower seeds are favored in the first round. That's the most since 2017, but more interestingly, 3 of the 4 are double-digit seeds that are favored in the first round. So let's go back to you, Jelani. We need your first round picks. I'm talking, game plays where you see some value.
All right, so let me actually pull up my bracket. So we have a lot of seeds that are, the 11s, the 10s that could make some noise here. I'm looking at Loyola Chicago. I think this is a team of, obviously you have Sister Jean and all that sort of thing. They made the Final Four a few years ago. They made the Sweet 16 a few years ago. This is a squad that I'm looking at Ohio State. They're playing them. I don't trust Ohio State in this spot as a 7, despite the fact they have EJ Liddell, who's one of the best players in this bracket. But yeah, they don't have a lot outside of Liddell. So I think Loyola, being a team that's smart, they're efficient, and they can really score, from the wing spots, in terms of the paint. And in terms of, just their field goal percentage is really high. I like them in that one. Look out for Davidson.
Hold on one sec. Let me jump in. Harley,
Yeah.
What are you seeing? I'm seeing Loyola Chicago as a 1-point dog against Ohio State. What are you seeing?
I had them as a 1.5-point favorite on my sheet. If I had to bet the game, I'd bet Loyola Chicago, but I didn't touch that game.
Okay. No, we want to tell the line, right? When you're making a pick. Continue on, Jelani. Who else do you like in the first round?
Yeah. I also like Davidson to beat MSU. So that's Michigan State. And that's another 7-10 game. I don't buy into what Tom Izzo's group has done this year. I think that he's had better teams in the past than this season. I would not be surprised. Don't be surprised, guys, if the Spartans don't show up in this spot. Davidson, they're a good shooting team. They managed to, limit the opponents in terms of scoring. So Davidson could make some noise in that spot as well. But yeah, no, overall, I think the first round, this is one of the rounds where we see the most upsets. So I would go, a lot of double figure seeds in this one, like Vermont. I think Vermont is actually gonna beat the Arkansas Razorbacks in the first round, the round of 64. You're looking at the West. Yes, Arkansas is definitely a team that a lot of bettors are looking at. I don't think a lot of bettors are putting all their stock into Musselman's group. They're well coached, but I think Vermont, they're one of the better shooting teams that no one's really talking about. If they get hot, this could work out for them, right? We see it all the time in this tournament. One day, it's only one game. All you need is a team to get hot and at the right time. And I think Vermont is actually going to move on to the next round to play UConn. So watch out for that one. That's one of my picks in terms of teams, 13 seeds or above. We don't always see those ones work out. But I would look and tell you, in terms of the NCAA tournament, always look at the 5-12s. The 5-12s are always tricky because the 12s always somehow, some way manage to make things interesting. And also the 4 and 13 matchups are always intriguing as well. And then the 7-10s. The 10s could come out in each region, to be honest.
And so Davidson, again, the line I'm looking at, a 1-point dog against Michigan State or did I screw that up? Vermont's a 5-point dog in their game, right? Is that what you're seeing, Harley?
Yeah, you got the lines about right. Yeah, they're moving around. Yeah, Vermont's about that. So you'd get just shy of 2-1 on Vermont if you were betting them to upset.
So Jelani's given us 3 picks. Who you got, Harley?
I got 4 money line bets in around pick'em games that I like in this tournament. Colorado State, Marquette, Texas, and Davidson. Colorado State plus 120. They're playing Michigan from the overhyped Big Ten, the big names. Again, the fact that their coach was suspended, they came back to play an important bubble game and they got bounced by Indiana is pathetic. Colorado State is strong. They're in the Mountain West, which was good with San Diego State, Boise, and Wyoming. I'm taking Colorado State plus 120. I like Marquette plus 140. A well-coached team by Shaka Smart playing against an inflated, big-name North Carolina team. We all know they beat Duke recently in a super hype game, and that's what the bettors are focused on. Again, I like to zag when they zig. That's a wheelhouse bet for me. I'm going to lay minus 120 with Texas. They're playing Virginia Tech. They're a top 5 defensive team, giving up less than 60 points a game. Virginia Tech, to me, is inflated. Everybody just saw them run the ACC tournament.
I agree.
10 days ago, Texas would have been a minus 180 favorite against Virginia Tech. Big deal. So they blew one lead to TCU while Virginia Tech got hot for a couple of days. I would fade that trend for value. And Jelani Davidson, plus 100. Michigan State has the star in Max Christie going to the NBA. They got famous Coach Izzo. The public's going to be all over Michigan State. The odds makers know this, and they only made him a 1-point favorite. I take Curry's alma mater, Davidson, for value. I bet a little more on Texas, a little less on Colorado State and Marquette. Win any 2 of the 4 money line bets I just gave you, Colorado State, Marquette, Texas, and Davidson, and you'll profit. You're getting good value. You're fading the bigger names, the flashy or hotter teams. You're betting on D and non-superstars. It's not sexy, but it gets you the value and it gets you the wins and the madness.
All right. Well, we've covered an awful lot over the course of just about 2 hours. I want to thank Jelani for joining us. Appreciate your insights. All the best. Enjoy the tourney. Harley is headed to Vegas. I want to swear at you. He's going to watch the opening weekend of the tournament in the best place to do so, in a Las Vegas sportsbook. You're going to, oh, by the way, did you get reservations, or you couldn't even get a seat?
So the sports books now charge you $250 for a seat.
Yeah,
they throw you 4 beers. I don't want to sit for 8-10 hours. I don't know if you know, but it's supposed to be like 27 and sunny in Vegas. We booked the Aria, so the pool. I'll move around. I'll watch a little bit in a hot tub, a little bit in the hotel room. I'll butt in front of some guy who will be annoyed or grab his chair when he gets up because he's been sitting for 7 hours. I'm sure I'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, enjoy that. Jelani, enjoy the tournament. Harley, best of luck in Vegas, and that carries all kinds of connotations when I say best of luck in many areas. And so we will not be with you this Friday, so we're going to have about a 10-day break. We'll be with you the following Friday, when we'll be, I guess, to the final weekend? So we'll be in the middle. We'll be in the midst of the middle weekend. We'll be.
Yeah. There'll be 16 teams left. There'll be 16 teams.
Well, we'll be with you on
it'll
Friday.
Be in between. It'll be in between. It's actually
there'll
perfect.
Be 12 teams left.
8
at that point.
For that night, 4 games that night, correct, and then the Elite 8 on the weekend. Yeah, it'll be great. We'll have a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. We'll get back to golf and tennis and everything else that we like to do as well. And we'll remind you, we love to hear from you, your picks, your pans, your comments. Email us, questions@theparleh.com. Hit us up on Twitter @Jorey Middle or @Sharp Edge Picks. And as we like to say each and every week, for Harley, I'm Jorey. May all your picks be winners. Ours too. We'll talk to you in about 10 days for another edition of the Parleh Sports Betting Show with Jorey and Harley, each and every week on Canada's sports betting network, The Parleh. Good luck and enjoy, guys.
Enjoy the madness, guys.